With so many companies pushing battery-powered equipment, I've often wondered whether the battery-powered chainsaws would work very well. So after checking the prices of Stihl battery power equipment, I decided not to put it to the test. So when someone from Saker reached out to me about testing their mini chainsaw, at first I was a little skeptical, but I thought of a couple instances where it might work well for me, so I decided to give it a try. It arrived with a case, a small bottle of oil, a chain, a charger, 2 batteries, and the tools to adjust the bar. I put the batteries on the charger before giving it a test. I have 3 commercial Stihl chainsaws, and the one I use the most is a Stihl MS-261 with a 16-inch bar. It's the perfect combination of weight to power for me, especially since most of the stuff that I'm cutting is 8 to 10 inches long. So after I charged the batteries, I came back out here and put it in, and when I first triggered this saw, I must admit that I was wildly skeptical. It didn't seem like it was running very fast. It didn't seem like it was going to do much. So the main reason I was interested in testing this saw out is what you see here on the screen. I'm often riding the fence lines with a four-wheeler. Sometimes I walk them, and I'm looking for shorts. So often, as you can see where I'm pulling up here, I run across small limbs and vines. And the thing that I like about this Saker saw so much is that even though it's not the most powerful saw, even though it's a little bit weaker, it's designed to be used with one hand. Now, you do have to be careful with it, as with any saw, but I really like how I can hold this muscadine vine that's hanging on the fence with one hand and saw with the other hand, and I don't have to deal with a two-handed saw with a vine that's moving around like crazy while I'm trying to cut. Those are not fun circumstances to have to deal with that I usually would do with my MS-261. So I continued riding the fences, and then I came across this pine tree that's laying down across the fence. Most of these trees are standing. At some point, they die, as thinner woods do, and so it's fell down a couple years after it died. It's not the hardest of woods, first of all because it's pine, but also because it's partially rotten. And so I decided to try seeing if this little 4-inch saw would cut through a 6 to 8-inch tree. Now, they say that you're not supposed to do this with this saw, and I get that, but also on a much more practical level, I just wanted to put it to the test. I don't recommend doing it. But it cut through it quite well. I came on the other side and tried cutting it, and it worked pretty well as well. So I was pleased that it cut this log. Once I got it up small enough, I was able to pick the log up and throw it off the fence. Now, the situations where I would use this saw are relatively rare. Again, usually I would use my Stihl chainsaws here. But when I'm riding the fences, there are some places that I have to walk. There are some places that I can ride the four-wheeler. But even carrying around a chainsaw on a four-wheeler is not the most easy thing. They can bounce around, and I try not to do it unless I know that I need it. This small handheld saw rides on the four-wheeler in a 5-gallon bucket very easily. And so when I'm walking the fences, I carry a few tools that I need on the electric fence in the 5-gallon bucket. And what that enables me to do is include this saw in that mix. And those areas where I'm walking, I have the saw with me. I don't have to go walk back and get the saw if I find a place that I need to cut it. And I don't have to carry a 10 or 12 pound chainsaw with me. So I really do like these characteristics of the saw. Now, one instance where I used the saw and I was not planning to, my dad and I were putting a hydraulic cylinder on the backhoe, and in the process we needed to cut this 1x4 board so that we could pry with a crowbar and lift up the hydraulic cylinder. I happen to have this saw and it works well in these situations too. I would not have thought about it beforehand, but I had it, and so I used it there. So this saw works really well for smaller type materials that you know you're going to be pruning by hand. Let me take you back to the farm now and show you one area where I think this saw will be really helpful and a good bit safer as well. There are times where I'm running a wood chipper. I have not run the wood chipper since I've used this saw, But as you can see, this wood chipper on my tractor has a hydraulic infeed, and sometimes the little branches that just go in there, if there are some Ys, most of the time the wood chipper just kind of pulls the branches more narrow and on into the feeder. But sometimes those branches do get stuck, especially if the branches are really horizontal and more at 90-degree angles. And having a saw that you can use with one hand that's not super powerful like the MS261 would save a good bit of time and energy, and it would be faster and easier because the battery powered saw just starts off so much faster than do the gas powered saws. It's just a matter of picking it up, pushing a button, squeezing the trigger, and coming back. Now right here on the screen, you can see right here on the screen is where the tree got stuck and I had to slow down, and it took a lot more time. Had I had my mini Saker saw at this point, I could have saved a good bit of time right here and made things a good bit easier. So in conclusion, I really do like this mini Saker saw. It's got decent battery life from what I've found so far. And there are instances where I would use the saw with one hand, hold the branch or the vine with the other hand and cut. It'd be a lot safer. You do have to be careful. It's still a chainsaw. The chain is still running at a fast speed. So don't fool yourself and think that it's not a safe saw to use. At the same time, don't fool yourself and think that this is going to take the place of a gas-powered chainsaw. It's not by any stretch of the imagination. But there are instances where this saw can be faster than a chainsaw that you have to use with two hands. Like right here, I'm still wrestling with this tree trying to get it unstuck. And then the area where I like it the most by far is when I have to walk along the electric fences and clear small branches and small vines. It's so much easier, it's so much lighter, and it works really well. There are two more areas where I think I might use it and where other people may use it as well. If you're going to be doing some stuff at your home, in your garden, or trimming fruit trees, anything where you would usually use like some heavy duty pruners, this saw will cut it, and it'll actually cut more than pruners will. As you saw, it'll cut 3-4 inch diameter stuff fairly easily, and it'll work much better than the hand pruners would. Also, if you're doing a construction project or if you're working on something where you don't need a very clean cut like from a circular saw, this chainsaw cuts through the 1x4s that we used fairly quickly, and it worked when we were trying to use those 1x4s to hold up the hydraulic cylinder when we were in a pinch. I'll include some links in the video description where you can see it on Amazon. Check it out if you're interested. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care and have a great day.